Inside every healthy leaf, there is an enzyme capable of breaking down 40 million molecules of hydrogen peroxide every single second. That one fact explains why a $1 brown bottle from the pharmacy can touch your plants without burning them. And it also explains why most gardeners are using it the wrong way. That enzyme is called catalase. Plants create it inside every chloroplast and every peroxisome they produce. When hydrogen peroxide lands on a healthy leaf, catalase breaks that molecule apart almost immediately. What remains on the leaf is only water and a tiny release of oxygen. Fungal spores do not carry that same protection. Powdery mildew, black spot, downy mildew, septoria, leaf spot. None of these diseases have the same enzyme shield. So when you spray a diluted hydrogen peroxide solution over an infected leaf, you are not covering the plant with poison. You are applying a compound that the plant can break down within seconds, but the fungus cannot. That is the real reason hydrogen peroxide works as a garden spray. Not magic. Not some secret chemistry hidden from ordinary people. Just a small evolutionary mismatch between the plants you are trying to grow and the diseases trying to attack them. The first suggestion to use this compound as a disinfectant came from an English doctor named Benjamin Ward Richardson. He published the idea in The Lancet in 1858. During the same period, he was working with John Snow on anesthesia. Almost 150 years later, you can still buy that discovery for less than the price of a head of lettuce, in the same store where you pick up your prescriptions. Section 1. Spraying leaves. The foliar method. Now comes the practical question. Does it actually do anything in the garden? In 2008, a peer-reviewed study published in the International Journal of Horticultural Science tested this spray on greenhouse cucumbers. The researchers used a 15 to 20 millimolar hydrogen peroxide solution, which is roughly equal to a 1% dilution made from the common household 3% bottle. The results were impressive. Powdery mildew severity dropped from 90% of the affected leaf area down to only 12%. But there is one detail in that paper that matters more than most people notice. The spray was used preventatively. It was applied before symptoms appeared on the plants, not after the white powder had already spread across half the bed. Hydrogen peroxide works much better as a shield than as a rescue treatment. If you remember only one thing from this video, remember that line. Here is the working recipe that many experienced gardeners use. 1 tablespoon of standard 3% hydrogen peroxide, 1 cup of clean water. That gives you a solution close to 1%. Only mix the amount you plan to use that same day. Once it is diluted, hydrogen peroxide begins breaking down within hours. Pour the mixture into a fine mist sprayer. Spray during the cool parts of the day, early in the morning, or during the last hour before dusk. Never spray in the middle of the day. Direct ultraviolet light from the sun breaks the peroxide molecule apart before it gets the chance to work. And wet leaves under hot sun can scorch easily. Both reasons lead to the same advice. Wait for shade. Cover both sides of every leaf. Fungal spores often hide underneath the leaves, where the shade keeps things cool and damp. If you only spray the tops, you have only done half the job. For prevention, use this once a week on plants you already know are vulnerable. Squash, cucumber, zinnia, monarda, roses, lilac. Apply it weekly through the growing season. If powdery mildew has already moved in, here is the honest truth. You can slow the spread, but you will not erase what is already established. Once colonies have pushed beneath the leaf cuticle, the white dust you see on top is connected to a network you cannot see. Trim off the worst infected leaves. Drop them into a paper bag and put them in the trash. Then spray everything that remains. Spray on a schedule, not out of panic. The gardeners who succeed with this method are the ones who treat it like watering, a weekly habit, not an emergency reaction. If you have been growing food for years, you know this moment well. Late July arrives, and the squash leaves near the edge of the bed begin showing a fine pale dust. By August, it has reached the zucchini, then the cucumbers, then the melon vines. Most years, you simply accept the loss as part of summer. But with a weekly preventive spray starting in early July, before the first visible speck appears, the timeline changes. The same plants that usually collapse by mid-August can keep producing into September. That is the difference between treating mildew like weather and treating it like chemistry. Here is what success usually looks like after 3 weeks of consistent spraying. Week 1. The existing dust stops moving onto new leaves. You begin noticing the youngest growth coming in clean. Week 2. Older infected leaves may yellow and fall, but the plant underneath is still sending out healthy stems. Week 3. The new canopy starts to look like it did in June. The plant has not been magically cured, it has simply been given enough time to grow past the problem. That is the realistic goal. The hidden mechanism: hydrogen peroxide as a plant immune signal. Here is the part of the science that makes this simple spray far more interesting than just a fungicide. Hydrogen peroxide is not only a molecule that can kill pathogens on contact. Inside the plant, it also acts as a signal. A 2016 review in Frontiers in Plant Science, written by Wojtyla and colleagues, explained this evidence in detail. When a plant detects hydrogen peroxide on its leaves, it begins producing defense compounds, even in parts of the plant the spray never directly touched. The technical name for this is systemic acquired resistance. The chemistry behind it involves communication with nitric oxide, calcium ions, and the same plant hormones that control flowering and stress responses. The practical meaning is much simpler. A light hydrogen peroxide spray on Tuesday can teach the plant to prepare for trouble on Friday. A dry spell, a heat wave, a fresh wave of spores blown in from a neighbor's garden. The plant has already switched on some of its defense genes. For gardeners who have watched the same tomato bed for 30 summers, this is where the deeper value is found. You are not only treating today's mildew, you are giving the plant a head start against next week's stress. That is a different kind of gardening from what the bottle on the garden center shelf is trying to sell you. Think about what that means in real life. The tomatoes you spray in early June, before any visible problem appears, may still be benefiting from that signal when a heat dome arrives in the second week of July. The roses you sprayed on a quiet Sunday morning carry that primed immune response into the wet days that follow the next storm. None of this asks for more work than you already do. It only asks that you do it at the right time, before the plant needs saving. The plants you grow have survived for hundreds of millions of years by listening to signals. Hydrogen peroxide is one of the oldest signals they recognize. A quick note before we go further. Everything covered so far, the foliar spray, the dilution, and the timing, is only the surface layer. The complete method has much more detail. A precise schedule for different vegetables, a troubleshooting guide for plants that react badly, the exact ratios for tougher problems like black spot on roses and early blight on tomatoes, a written list of sensitive plants so you do not have to remember which ones require extra caution. That kind of detail belongs in a written guide you can keep near the watering can, not buried inside a video you have to rewind over and over just to find one chart. Scan the QR code on the screen now. It will open a free PDF blueprint that explains everything. Concentrations, calendar, sensitive plant list, and a one-page cheat sheet for soil drench versus foliar spray. Print it, fold it, slip it into your gardening notebook. Think of it as a gift from one gardener to another. The next part of this video moves below the soil line, where most plants are quietly losing a fight you cannot even see. Section 3. Spraying the soil, saving a plant from root rot. The problem most plants do not survive usually begins underground. A tomato wilts in the morning, recovers by evening, then wilts again the next day. Pothos leaves turn yellow from the bottom up, no matter how careful you are with watering. A sour smell rises from a pot that has been sitting in the same place for weeks. That is root rot. And the worst instinct, the one almost every kind-hearted gardener follows, is to water more. The plant looks thirsty, the leaves are limp, so the watering can comes out, and the plant gets worse. The diseases that cause root rot, Pythium, Phytophthora, Rhizoctonia, Fusarium, all share one thing. They thrive in waterlogged soil where oxygen has disappeared. Their world is the anaerobic pocket at the bottom of an overwatered pot, or the compacted clay layer 6 inches below a vegetable bed after a wet spring. This is where hydrogen peroxide does its second job. When you pour a diluted solution into that suffocating soil, two things happen at the same time. The peroxide reacts directly with pathogens, oxidizing their cell walls. And as it breaks down, it releases oxygen right where the roots have been starving for it. Mix 1 tablespoon of 3% hydrogen peroxide into 1 cup of water. Drench the soil around the base of the plant. Use enough to saturate the root zone, but not so much that it overflows. Listen closely. You may hear a soft fizz coming from the soil surface. That sound is the chemistry happening below. Now, a few honest warnings. Roots that have already turned black and slimy are dead. Hydrogen peroxide will not bring them back. What it can do is stop the spread, give the remaining white roots room to breathe, and buy you the time you need to repot or fix the drainage. If the plant is in a container, slide it out. Trim the rotted roots with sterilized scissors. Refresh the soil. Then drench once more after replanting. For an outdoor bed where root rot keeps returning, especially in heavy soils after a wet spring, a monthly soil drench during the wet season can help prevent pathogen populations from slowly building up. The plants you save are often the ones you did not realize you were losing. There is one diagnostic detail worth remembering. Healthy roots smell faintly sweet, like fresh-cut potatoes or rain on stone. Rotted roots smell sour, sometimes sharp, sometimes faintly like a forgotten ditch. If you slide a struggling plant out of its pot and that sour note reaches you before you even look at the roots, you already have your answer. Trust your nose. It often catches the problem before your eyes do. Section 4. Spraying seeds. Bringing old seeds back to life. There is one more use for hydrogen peroxide that many gardeners never think about. Using it on the seed itself before the seed ever touches soil. If you have a coffee tin or a shoebox full of old seeds hidden in a drawer, heirloom tomatoes saved from your mother's garden, beans stored away 3 summers ago, zinnia packets from a county fair. Those seeds may seem dead, but often they are not. They may simply be dormant or covered with mold spores that will rot them before they ever germinate. A research team at North Carolina State University and the U.S. Forest Service, working through the CAMCOR conservation program, tested this on Atlantic white cedar, a species known for poor germination. A simple hydrogen peroxide soak nearly doubled seed germination compared with other sterilization treatments. The peroxide killed the surface pathogens that were quietly destroying viable seeds before they could sprout. The 2016 Wojtyła review looked at the broader pattern across many crop species. Hydrogen peroxide soaks can shift the internal hormone balance of a seed. Abscisic acid, which keeps seeds dormant, drops. Gibberellic acid, which encourages sprouting, rises. At the same time, the hard outer coat softens. The seed wakes up because the chemistry inside it has been told to begin. The method is simple. Mix 1 tablespoon of 3% hydrogen peroxide into 1 cup of clean water. Soak the seeds for 15 to 30 minutes, no longer. Rinse them with plain water. Plant immediately. Keep the soil warm and the surface damp until the first green shoots appear. Try this on seeds you were about to throw away, the ones that failed in last year's tray. The packets pass their printed date. Many of them may surprise you. The lifeline was not always gone. It was simply sealed under a coat the seed could not break by itself. There is a special kind of satisfaction in watching a seed sprout that you almost tossed into the compost. Maybe it is a bean variety your father used to grow that no one sells anymore. Maybe it is a flower packet your grandmother labeled in pencil 30 years ago. The hydrogen peroxide soak does not perform miracles, but it gives seeds that deserve another chance one more opportunity. Take notes on which seeds respond. Build the small habit of testing old seed every February, about 6 weeks before your indoor sowing dates. By the time the trays go outside, you will know what you still have. Nature's spray, the chemistry of a summer thunderstorm. Most experienced gardeners have noticed something they cannot fully explain. After a strong summer thunderstorm, plants look different the next morning. Not just wet, vivid. The leaves seem to glow in a way that water from a garden hose never quite produces. That is not only a trick of the light. In 1999, geochemists Yuegang Zhao and Yue Deng published a study in the journal Geochimica et Cosmochimica Acta showing what happens during electrical storms. When lightning passes through humid air, it drives chemistry that creates measurable amounts of hydrogen peroxide in falling rain. They measured concentrations in Miami rainfall for more than a year. During thunderstorms, peroxide levels rose with lightning activity. The wider atmospheric chemistry that creates peroxide in clouds, photochemistry, ozone, volatile organic compounds reacting with sunlight, has been happening since long before humans ever noticed it. This is part of the natural background chemistry that has watered every plant for as long as plants have existed. So, when you spray a properly diluted hydrogen peroxide solution on your garden, you are not introducing something strange. You are echoing a process nature has been running quietly above your head for hundreds of millions of years. That is the right way to think about the brown bottle. Not as a miracle, as a small, ordinary piece of chemistry plants have always lived with, only concentrated enough to be useful in your hands. Section 6. The market answer. Why this isn't on TV. A fair question remains. If hydrogen peroxide is this useful, this safe, and this cheap, why are garden centre shelves filled with branded fungicides instead? The answer is not that it is being hidden. Hydrogen peroxide was first registered with the EPA as a pesticide ingredient in 1977. It was approved specifically for use on growing plants in 1998. According to recent USDA records, more than 160 commercial pesticide products on the market contain it as an active ingredient. It appears on the labels of both organic certified fungicides and conventional products. The reason it is not advertised more loudly is the same reason nobody runs TV commercials for table salt. Hydrogen peroxide has no patent protection. Any chemical plant can make it. The margins are thin. There is no big budget for glossy packaging or magazine advertising. Companies selling $60 branded fungicides do not benefit from reminding you that a similar active ingredient may already be sitting in a brown bottle for under $2 at the pharmacy near your house. This is not a conspiracy story, it is a market story. The product was never hidden. It was simply never profitable enough to promote loudly. Section 7. Safety, dilution, and wisdom for older hands. A few rules deserve respect before you reach into the medicine cabinet. 3% is the only concentration you need. The brown pharmacy bottle is already pre-diluted for safer handling. Stronger grades, like 35% food-grade hydrogen peroxide, used by some commercial growers, require gloves, eye protection, and careful dilution. For the home garden, there is no real advantage to starting with the stronger version. Buy the household bottle. Never spray in the midday sun. Ultraviolet light breaks hydrogen peroxide down quickly, and wet leaves under direct sunlight can scorch. Early morning is best. The last hour before dusk is the second best choice. The light is softer, the air is cooler. The spray has more time to work before evaporation pulls it off the leaf. Never mix hydrogen peroxide and vinegar in the same container. Together they can form peracetic acid, a stronger oxidizer that is harsh on plant tissue and hard on your lungs. Both can work fine separately. Together they create problems neither would cause alone. The same rule applies to neem oil. Use one product, then use the other on a different day. Always test before treating the whole plant. Mist one leaf with your prepared solution. Wait 48 hours. Check for bleaching, browning, or wilting. If the leaf looks unchanged, the rest of the plant should be fine. If it reacts badly, dilute further before continuing. Some plants deserve extra caution. Orchids, African violets, ferns, peace lilies, and most plants with thin or fuzzy leaves. These react more strongly than tougher garden crops. For those, use half the standard strength, about half a tablespoon per cup of water instead of a full tablespoon, and test even more carefully. One practical note for those of us who have gardened for 40 years and know exactly what aching knees feel like. Use a light spray bottle. Fill it only halfway so it stays easy to handle. A 2-liter sprayer full of water weighs more than 4 pounds, and that weight sits on your wrist for the entire job. Half full saves the joints. Spray while sitting when you can. A low stool, the edge of a raised bed, a folding chair brought outside for the morning. The garden will still be there tomorrow. If your hand strength comes and goes, and after enough decades of pulling weeds and turning compost, many of us know that feeling, consider buying a small electric or battery-powered spray bottle. Good ones cost around $20 at the hardware store. They take the pressure off the trigger finger completely. Press a button. Hold the wand. Let the motor do the work. The same nozzle that wears out your hand at noon will feel almost effortless at 6 in the morning when you actually want to be spraying. The right tool for the right job is not vanity. It is the reason you still want to be outside next summer and the summer after that. Most garden wisdom that lasts does not arrive loudly. It does not come in a bright package on a hardware store shelf. Sometimes it sits quietly on a shelf the rest of the house already trusts, waiting for someone patient enough to notice what it can do. A brown bottle, clean water, the quiet morning hour before the sun becomes sharp. That is the whole method. The plants will tell you the rest.